Crippling snow and the T's ongoing meltdown, snarling commutes and dominating the headlines, it's been easy to forget about Boston's push to host the 2024 Summer Olympics. But despite the latest iteration of Snowmageddon and all the hassles it's created, the city's Olympic bid continues to evolve. Last week, London Mayor Boris Johnson visited Boston and said that based on his experience with London's 2012 games, which included this daring ride on a zip line, media skepticism will fade away if Boston's bid wins out.
I remember lots of people, lots of influential newspaper columnists inveighing against the Olympics, slagging it off, decrying it. They hated the whole thing. And then when it all started, they loved it.
But judging from Boston's first public meeting on the bid, held earlier this month, it's not just the media that have reservations.
I love the Olympics and I love the city of Boston, but not together.
I think it's completely anti-democratic that the USOC would eliminate other U.S. cities before finding out how the public feels in the one they picked compared to how the public feels in those other cities.
Boston City Councilor Josh Zakim has a possible solution. He wants Boston to put 4 non-binding questions related to the games on the ballot.
This is such an important project. This is potentially 9 years, a big unprecedented interaction between private organizations and the city that people really want to say on it.
Meanwhile, Harvard President Drew Faust says that despite hints to the contrary from Boston 2024 backers, her university won't help with Olympics fundraising. And there's been another big development on Beacon Hill, a bill filed by 2 state representatives that would make all spending in pursuit of the Olympic Games public. One of those state representatives, Aaron Michaelwitz, joins me now. Representative, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations. The first time I've been on since Emily
has
left, so congratulations on
maybe
your role.
Browdy will have you back, so thank you.
Yes.
So let's talk about this commission that you would like to set up. It would do a whole bunch of different things, but I want to begin talking about what it would do in terms of transparency. As I understand it, you would basically create a website that would track all pro-Olympics expenditures, maybe some anti-Olympics expenditures as well. Why is this something that you think is necessary?
Well, I think that, it's something that I did with the Greenway Conservancy. When the Greenway Conservancy was having some of its troubles over the last couple of years, we decided that we thought putting all their information and all where they're getting their funding, how they're spending their funding, getting that online, doing what some have called the open checkbook policy, and getting that out there so people can have a chance to view it and make decisions for themselves in terms of what they think is right and how the process is working.
We should mention you represent the North End, so you're directly impacted by what goes down on the Greenway, for better or worse. Now, as you know, Marty Walsh, the mayor of Boston, has taken some issue with the notion that more transparency is required, or maybe that mandated transparency is required. Let's take a look at a quote from the mayor. This ran in a Boston Globe article a little while ago. I think we have it handy. There we go. The mayor said to the Globe, "I don't need legislation to explain to me how important it is to have transparency. If we need legislation to have transparency, then we should just forgo the bid altogether." What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think that this bill or this commission would, more importantly, give the state a seat at the table. Currently, there is no seat at the table by any of the state stakeholders. And so this bill would focus and make sure that the states and the Commonwealth's, taxpayers and the money that would be put in would make it more transparent and make it more important that they get a chance to actually have a say in how we move forward. The city has, and the administration has made it very clear that they're not, going to invest any more public dollars into this Olympic bid. The federal government,
at least into, we should just to jump in, not into facilities, right? There might be transportation investments, which backers say have already, had commitments made. There's some dispute about that among opponents, but. Sorry.
Right. And we also, I don't believe we're going to get much help from the federal government, especially from a Republican Congress that has already gone, many members have gone on the record and said that it's their bid, let them deal with it. So at the end of the day, I think who's going to end up footing the bill if we end up having an Olympics? I think it's going to be the state and the Commonwealth, and I think we're going to have to make sure that if we do have to invest into this process, whether it be public infrastructure or some facilities, then we should make it as transparent or as have as much accountability online as possible.
So just to get a very basic sense of how this would work, if I wanted to go online, if this website existed, and I wanted to see what, say, Boston 2024 had spent in a given month, would I be able to go on, just like with the State Office of Campaign and Political Finance database, and just search Boston 2024 expenditures, and then they'd all be laid out?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the intent, and that would be, similar to what you just said about OCPF and how they operate. In reality, it would really be how the commission wants to govern it and how they want to put it together. Basically, putting it into the commission's hands would allow for them to, figure out the regulations that they think are important, but having it online first and foremost would be a necessity.
And would you want to track the expenditures of groups like No Boston Olympics? Or I know Evan Felchuk, the former gubernatorial candidate, is pushing a statewide ballot measure to give people a chance to vote yay or nay on the Olympics. Would you want that spending tracked too?
I think that would be important. In terms of if we're going to have a referendum or any type of referendum, we want to make sure that the special interests that potentially could be involved through financial measures are up online and transparent.
All right, so let's talk about how the commission would be structured. 7 members, right?
Yep.
Appointed by a host of different stakeholders,
yep,
from the governor to the AG to other parties,
including the mayors. Including the mayors.
Okay, and the commission would be able to hire a director, right? They'd have that option?
Yep.
So how much would that all cost? Because that's something that a lot of people watching, people reading about this are going to be wondering.
Of course. I think that that's something that would get played out through the committee process and through the legislative process of the bill. What I personally foresee is something along the lines of what the Gaming Commission had. I think the executive director made maybe $200,000, something of that nature.
That sounds right.
I could see something along those lines, but I think we want to see that play out as we go through the process itself.
One of the things in your bill that I know you would like the commission to do, if it's created, is enhance the public process around the games. Mayor Walsh has touted, I think it's fair to say proudly, the fact that he's holding 9 meetings in the city of Boston for people to have a chance to weigh in. Why do you think the public process around the Olympics needs enhancing?
Well, I think that 9 meetings, through the city of Boston is a very good step that the Boston 2024 and the administration has taken. I think that we need to, enhance that, especially when we're talking about state tax dollars that are potentially involved. And doing that would involve having public meetings throughout the entire state. I know Boston 2024 has actually talked about having their own meetings across the state. I think they announced that today, 20 meetings across the state. But I think that we need something that doesn't necessarily have the angle of Boston 2024 or even of the No Olympics. I think a lot of us, and I put myself in this category, haven't decided whether or not we're going to support this Olympic process or go against it, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of different avenues and alternatives that we're talking here. So we haven't been able to sort it all out, and I think getting a commission together that will allow us to sort through a lot of those issues, including the financial and including the potential disruption that would take place in different areas of the state, not just in the city, would be important for us.
My recollection is that there were some hearings at the State House when this first got going. I think Eileen Donahue maybe was one of the leaders of those hearings. How much of a say did that really give the legislature as this process was taking shape?
It's a fair question. I think that for a lot of us, it wasn't something we necessarily thought was going to happen. It was an idea at that point in time. It wasn't reality. I think it's reality now. The fact that Boston has been chosen, I think Boston is an attractive candidate, regardless of whether you're for or against this, the Olympics. I think we can all agree that Boston is an attractive city and a place that people want to come to, and hosting an Olympics would be obviously a special occasion for us to commemorate. But I don't think we're there. We weren't there yet back when we were talking about it a year or 2 or even 3 years ago. Now it's real, and I think Boston is a legitimate contender.
That's one of the things that has fascinated me about this process, is how quickly it went. I mean, I remember Mayor Menino sort of, scoffing at the idea and saying, that's never going to happen. And there was a time when it seemed like that would be the end of it. And all of a sudden now it seems to be going a lot faster than that. It's real.
It's real now. And the sports fan in me, I'm a Celtics season ticket holder. I obviously I'm rooting on the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Would love to see the Olympics take place. The proud Bostonian in me would love to see the Olympics take place. The state rep in me, the person who's supposed to be watching over the state tax dollars, has real concerns, and I think a lot of my colleagues share those concerns. And how we get to this through this process, I think, is something that we're going to play out as we go along and figure out as we go along.
All right, Representative Aaron Michowitz, thanks.